have any additions or changes to the agenda? Now I'll entertain a motion that approves the agenda.
I'd make a motion to accept the agenda as written.
Second.
Motion been made and accepted to accept the agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes from the previous meeting. Everybody had a chance to take a look at those.
Move we approve the minutes of the June 2nd meeting as presented.
Second?
Motion been made and seconded to approve the minutes from the June 2nd meeting as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Gentlemen, it's nice to have you all this morning. Anything you'd like to pass along to us?
Be quiet. You're doing okay.
Good. After the weekend, and
I didn't graduate around here, so I didn't participate in that one.
well, hopefully it was a success for everybody. Everybody seemed to be happy and having a good time. It's nice to have you. I guess we'll move right into reports. Megan, you're up first.
Morning.
Morning.
We have one action item for you this morning, and this is the vehicle operations policy that we discussed at the last meeting. Appreciate again the input that we got. We revised that draft to restate language from the personnel policy addressing non-employee and non-business passengers in MMU vehicles. You'll see that the very last item in that document, actually. And again, this document is really just formalizing procedures that we already implemented. So we are recommending a motion to approve that policy effective July 1.
Yeah, I read through it, see the changes you made, and unless there's any discussion, I'd make that motion to approve the vehicle operations policy effective July 1st, 2022.
I second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the vehicle operation policy effective July 1st, 2022. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Only other item that I wanted to mention was the note in there about the COVID-19 emergency paid sick leave policy that is currently set to end June 30th unless the board takes action, and that provides leave for the three types of events listed there. We're not recommending any renewal of that policy at this time, so we would just suggest that the board let that expire. Full disclosure, I do unfortunately need to update the last paragraph there. I said the last use of that was in March, and then we hadn't had any events since March, but we do currently have an ongoing event that has required use of that leave, so just make the board aware of that. And I think the county numbers yesterday were 7, up from the 4 last week, so. But that does not change our recommendation.
Well, hopefully, maybe we're singing into that, probably onto something else, so. Any other questions for Megan? No, thank you, Megan. Tony, I guess you're next.
Morning.
Morning.
I do have a revised copy of the cash reserve policy in there, showing the additional detail on EPA and DNR. I don't know if you guys had time to look at it. Chuck,
Yeah. Yep.
You good with that? Or?
And I'll just comment, so I talked to Tony after the meeting. My point about adding more detail around this was the way it was originally written. I was concerned that it almost read that any EPA or DNR things that came up, that we wouldn't be aware of them. And I wanted to make sure that the ones that, it's the unexpected stuff
Right.
that causes us the concern. We should be aware of EPA and DNR regulations, and that was my point. We should be, aware of them and be reacting to them before, but I do understand there are some that come up that are unexpected, and this helps to clarify it, and I appreciate that, Tony. Just one thing, and it's minor, but in the next paragraph, operation and maintenance maximum reserve, the maximum operating and maintenance reserves for the all, I think you wanted to strike the and just call
Yeah.
all, yeah,
Thank you, Chuck.
minor. But no, I thank you for the revision, and it helps to clarify it, at least for me. I think if we're comfortable with it, there's no other, we could
It's
be
good. I'm
ready
good
to
with it.
accept it. I know I am, so I would make a motion to approve the Marshall Municipal Utilities Cash Reserve Policy effective June the 20th, 2022.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the Marshall Municipal Utilities Cash Reserve Policy effective June 20th, 2022. There's no other questions or comments. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Other than that, I'm working on getting the financials clean for May, so I'll try to have those to you guys next board meeting. And I did give you guys copies of kind of a sample of what the bills are going to look like. The wording, anything on there can really be changed, but I feel comfortable with how they look, and so I think our goal today is to get books 1, 2, and 3 mailed out today. Typically, they're mailed out last Friday or Monday, so we're a few days behind, but we're going to try to get those out later today. But just really for you guys to have a copy of this, kind of have an idea what they're going to look like.
Just one comment, I'm just kind of looking at it, I always hate abbreviations in WT and EL, and, yeah, I know what they mean, but I don't know if there's, before we had it really kind of spelled out. I don't know if there's enough room.
Yeah, I just don't know if there's enough room to have,
Have that.
probably could get water in there. Electric might be,
Could you put a key down below, like with the pilot?
yeah, we can add any kind of notes at the bill. We can
At the
add
bottom,
at
we
the
can add
bottom.
EL, electric, WT, water, I think, because we
And
wanted
right
to.
now,
put a
Just a
little
key.
more- Well, we wanted to explain pilot a little bit more. It says pilot, but I don't know that, I think we wanted to put kind of a little sentence down there on pilot as well, so I mean, that could be done.
Okay, yeah.
I know one of the things that we did is we broke out the base charges, so a lot of times we get questions on that. So we went ahead and made that change to show what the base charge and usage charge is, so. But other than, do you guys have any other questions? Be more than happy to answer.
Anything else for Tony? Thank you, Tony. Nolan, good morning.
Good morning. I have an action item this morning on the overhead doors that were damaged in last year's flood on the filter building. We sent those bids out to 8 different vendors, and we only received one back. After talking with FEMA, well, it's been a couple months ago, we kind of asked about that, how we proceed, with the limited amount of bids we've been getting on things, and they said anything we got we could use. So we did open that bid for the amount of $25,592 from Associated Door in Sedalia. So, like I say, it should be the 90% reimbursement, so that should help. But my recommendation is a motion to approve the bid from Associated Door Company in the amount of $25,592 pending approval of their safety paperwork. There is still a few things that we're waiting on there.
Any delivery date on that? I understand they're hard to come by.
I should have checked that. I think it was 14 weeks was what they were looking at. So it was actually a better lead time than what they had told us last fall when they originally kind of looked at that. It was, at that time, it was going to be around 6 months, they thought. So.
Well, this is your area of expertise, so.
Get them.
What do you think? You want to accept the bid?
Yeah, I think so. I'll motion to approve the bid from Associated Door Company in the amount of $25,592, pending the approval of their safety paperwork. What does that entail?
There's just a safety questionnaire that goes out with the bid sheets, and they have, there was some of that was left blank that we were still requesting a little more information on.
Okay, no problem there, though.
Not that we've seen yet. I mean, so long as they respond to everything, which would be fine.
And I'll stay with my motion.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the bid from Associated Door Company in the amount of $25,592 pending the approval of the safety paperwork. There's no additional discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Just a couple updates. We did receive the spreader truck last week. We've been using it. The guys between last week with that truck and this week with one of the old trucks and the new truck, we've spread close to 100 dry tons in that time frame. So we really put a dent in what we had stockpiled down there. And Chase and part of the safety committee did a safety walkthrough at the plant, and all those items have been completed. So, other than that,
Any update on the VFDs, when they're, the delivery? Are we still looking maybe September?
as far as I know, yes.
Okay.
The meeting yesterday was canceled. I'm not sure when they're going to reschedule that. If not, we'll have a discussion next Wednesday. But I could probably reach out to Kevin and ask him if he's heard any updates. But if he has, he hasn't passed them along at this time. So.
Yeah, we were waiting on an update from their engineer, I think, too, explaining the difference
Oh yeah.
between the, was it
dynamic braking.
dynamic braking
Yeah, uh-huh.
was
Maybe not needed?
maybe not needed.
Uh-huh.
There was no price reduction if we didn't get that feature, but it would improve the lead time. So we were just kind of doing our due diligence. I got with Pat, and then when their engineer was going to provide some details on the difference between that, and sit down and have a discussion with our staff and kind of see where we ended up. So we just want to make sure it's not, we don't eliminate something we could possibly use later.
Right.
So, but yeah, the meeting was canceled yesterday, and hopefully we'll get circled back up next week.
I was out there the other day. Did they pour those? They were tying the steel and forming up those the pads. Did they pour those?
In the bottom of the basin.
Uh-huh.
They haven't yet.
Haven't poured them yet.
That's their plan. Last I talked with Glenn, I guess that was Monday. They thought maybe Tuesday or Thursday of next week they would. They were still working on forming the curb wall around the north half of that basin. They were planning on bringing the pumper truck in. He talked like the pumper truck would probably be there at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, so they could try to pour everything in one day.
Anything else for Nolan? Thank you, Nolan. Travis, good morning.
Morning.
Travis.
I do have an action item also. It was on the utility task vehicle. Bid openings were earlier this month. Went out to several vendors. We only received one bid back, and it came in way over budget. After talking to one of the other vendors, one of the reasons why they didn't bid anything was that company does not have any 2022s available at all. And the 2023s, they don't have firm pricing. So that was the reason they didn't give a bid. They were actually requesting later this month they could give us something for 2023 bids. But after looking at it, everything, looking at probably trying to revise the bid specs a little bit, try to trim that down a little bit more, everything, and then try to request bids again. So at this time, my recommendation would be a motion to reject the bid that we received and revise bid specs and request bids again at a later date.
Must have been a pretty nice UTV. I
That
know those
was-
things are
Yes,
expensive.
it was.
but-
That was a lot more machine than we need.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not, and I appreciate their bidding, but it just wasn't, it didn't.
And I appreciate you being prudent about the budget.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It was, a little bit, I think it was, yeah, a lot
Have air
more.
conditioning?
It was
It
nice.
did, it did.
Yeah,
And power windows, and, yeah, a lot of things we didn't
a
need.
whole bunch of things.
Yeah, so, I think it was 84 horsepower too, so. It was,
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
nice, but not needed. We don't need nice, we just need functional.
Yeah. Well, I would certainly make that recommendation to reject the bid, revise the bid specs, and request bids again at a later date.
Second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to reject the bid, revise bid specs, and request bids again at a later date. No other discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
One of the update on the way belt feeder, which it did come with the wrong belt, which it's not due back until, at the factory back until the 20th, and then it'll ship out to us. Another thing we found with it, the belt scraper was the wrong one also. So that was brought up to them, so they have to replace it also. And then we found out that it was missing a communication cable to go to the control panel, which they've supposed to ship that out earlier this week at no cost because it should have been included with it. So hopefully it'll show up this week, and everything's installed except for the wiring right now, so, and the belt and everything, so. And other than that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
This must have been one of those things they put together after a holiday.
We hope not.
Anything else, Travis?
See, we got some media.
Yes. Yeah, I've got several bags of the anthracite only. Haven't heard back from him when some of the other media is going to show up, and then they'll actually be on the site. At least we have something there.
Thank you, Travis. Jim, good morning.
Morning, Jim. Not a whole lot to add. We've had a couple good weeks where rain hadn't bothered us too much, but now it's getting too hot to drive. But always something. But, a couple good weeks of varying stuff. That's about all. Unless you have any questions.
Flying still going well out in the county?
Yeah, everything's going pretty well. I've been driving out routes for the second grant, trying to get that bid ready to send out hopefully next week. Coleman's moving over to the west side of town. We've still got a long list of stuff to do out in the county, a long list of customers waiting.
Good. That's exciting. Any questions for Jim? Okay, thank you, Jim.
I guess just one comment. I don't know that there's anything we can do about it, but I know he's having a little bit of a problem with locates. The locates are delaying him, but I don't know what can be done about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's par for the course
Yeah.
in town everywhere. And phone company, he did have two locators for a while, and then one of them new and he left, so they're back down to one locator and got a lot of stuff to locate, and then the water is always hard to locate, so. But, yeah, it's-
Yeah, it just is what it is.
yeah, and then a lot of time the phone doesn't bother to locate their drops, they only locate their main trunk lines. And so you're plowing along, hit a line, and you don't know if it's active or not, and nobody located it. It's, a lot of times he does, locates his own phone lines.
But he's staying way ahead of.
Yeah, he's way
us.
ahead of us, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Grant, good morning.
Morning, gentlemen. I don't have a lot to add. The sewer project between Odell and Jefferson, it's moving right along. There's 3 main phone lines that run up that alley right on top of that sewer main that are 500-600 pair. So we took them on ourselves and talked with AT&T, and we dug those up. That first run's approximately 400 feet. We dug those up and moved those out of the way, and then backfilled so we can go back, and so they wouldn't be on top of us. So that first 400 foot of that is done. They should be moving on land main today. And as I mentioned in the last meeting, we did receive both 1-ton cab and chassis, and the bid specs are out, and they're due back July 13th. Have had some interest already, a couple phone calls, discussions with them, so they talk like lead time's not an issue on these, but that's yet to be determined.
Good.
That's all I have unless the board has any questions.
Anything on the infiltration study?
Not yet. We're Jeff will talk more about the ARPA thing. We're looking into key areas of the community with demographic, and we're going to match that with the flow study and kind of pair those things together, but we haven't got anything yet.
Yeah, they pulled their equipment last Thursday, I think a week ago. So
Did they?
Just did
Okay.
get their equipment out. So they'll be going over the data here. That'd be the next step, so.
I imagine we'll have more data than we can wrap our heads around in a minute.
As long as it leads us somewhere, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the timing with the flow study and the ARPA funding appear to be like they're going to gel pretty well and help us.
Yeah.
Anything else for Grant? Thank you, Grant. Doug, good morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Doug.
Morning.
Just a few updates on the damaged gang-operated switch. Parts did come in for that, and the crew got that repaired yesterday, so we'll get that worked in pretty soon, get those put in service anyway. The replacement of the broken concrete, Septicon did pour that yesterday. Very happy with the way that turned out. Looks good. They should be in today to finish caulking some expansion joints and just a little bit of cleanup, and they'll be complete with that. Overhead to underground, the crews did finish installing all the service conduits, so all primary, secondary service conduits have been installed. They're going to back up and install secondary pedestals and transformer box pads, and then begin pulling in the primary, secondary conductors. Other than that, that's all I've got. Unless you have any questions.
Anything for Doug? Thank you, Doug. Carl, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Not a lot to add. I haven't heard back from Peaker Services yet, anything on the governor's. The units had on there, received a commitment from SPP around Unit 6. That unit only ran once this month, which is kind of surprising. Unit 10 and 11 has ran every day this week, and it'll be running today too. So both of those units will be. Other than that, pretty glad to answer any questions if you have one.
Why is that?
10 and 11 are dispatched by MOPEP, so it's usually an economic thing, so the prices on the market are high. And 6 is dispatched by SPP, and that was one we were kind of expecting to get more commitments on because of MISO, I think, is they're short of reliable power. And I know there's some places that are doing rolling blackouts actually because of the shortage of power so already.
Yeah, and 10, 11 have a better heat rate, so with high gas prices, the power that 10 and 11 are putting out is lower cost than 6. As Carl mentioned, you have MOPEP's dispatching those on the day-ahead market. They're looking at the day-ahead market, and it's an economic dispatch. So there's some savings for the pool and some money to be made there as well. So I expect before summer's over, probably all our units will have run quite a bit. Because MISO is short capacity substantially. So unfortunately, we're at SPP, but we're right on the scene between SPP and MISO. So there's a good chance we could run to help support MISO as well.
What was the hazardous waste that was shipped out?
We had, in the past, when Jenny Ismay was here, we were shipping out hazardous waste once a year. And when DNR came and inspected it, there were some things that had been there over 180 days. And some of the regulations with some of the stuff says it has to be, you can't keep it over 6 months. So we sent out everything we had in the building. There were, lights, street lights, different, waste that we collected over that was what had been a little over a 6-month period. So we'll be starting to ship that out twice a year now instead of once.
I think bulbs, rags, paint cans. It's an assortment of different things that we collect.
Okay.
I think there's barrels at each department where those are picked up, I think.
Transformer oil or anything like that?
No transformer. That's just your standard kind of consumables. I know we puncture the aerosol cans. There's rags and mercury vapor light bulbs, fluorescent light bulbs, compact fluorescent stuff.
Right. Not a lot of street lights anymore.
Not a lot of street lights.
Changed all those out, but some mercury vapor lights, those kind of sodium different ones that we collect, they get replaced. And they have actually started on the board approved getting lighting for the 10 and 11 upgrade, and they have started replacing some of those that have been ordered and came in. Some of them came in and they started work on that as well.
Okay. I guess it goes, we have an approved service that gets disposed of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Clean Harbors, or Safety Clean,
Okay.
does some of it, and then there's a Haz Waste company that comes in from Kansas City that handles some of it as well.
Yeah, it's pretty well established. We've been doing it, for quite some time.
Okay.
All the aerosol cans we get, we actually puncture, and then we just capture the liquid waste from that, and that's what the cans themselves can be recycled.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Carl. Jeff, I guess you're up.
Morning, gentlemen. Got an action item this morning. Been digging in on the ARPA funding. I think they finally come out with the states finally come out with how they're going to allocate those funds. I think it's a little bit different than DNR had envisioned. And they didn't really put a lot of it towards water and wastewater. I included in the board packet for you gentlemen kind of where they're spending all those funds. A lot of that funding is going to state agencies. It's kind of being spent within the state. I think there's universities, state educational institutions, there's about $500 million there. Law enforcement, prisons, state parks, a lot of different places getting money. But for water and wastewater, it looks like there's $125 million for each, so $250 million total, which really doesn't go very far. They also have a application. It's based on points, the scoring system. The and that scoring system's based on the most recent census data. And it's really targeted or focused to smaller communities that don't have the resources to make improvements otherwise, or smaller census tracts. So, in working with DNR, Marshall as a whole, if you take Marshall and count it as a whole census tract, we get 35 out of 140 points. But Marshall is made up of 4 separate census tracts. So if you go and look at those, there are 2 census tracts within Marshall that score very well individually. And so what our focus is going to be, since we're not going to get money for the plant, is to try to use the I&I study to identify sewer projects in these individual census tracts. Both those census tracts, so anything under 3,300 in population gets a maximum of 15 points. So both those census tracts will be able to get the maximums there. The unemployment rate, we've got one census tract in our community that's over 20% of that census tract is in poverty. That's not good, but when you're applying for these type of funds, you should get maximum points for that. So that's kind of the direction we're heading. The first step in that is to approve this resolution to apply for funding from the governing body. We may change. North Street Pump Station serves the whole town. We're going to work with Burns McDonald. You know, the industrial customers, the biggest part of our customer base for water is in the census tract that we could use, that will score much higher than 35 points. So we're going to kind of play around with that a little bit. That may change. We may, if we can't get North Street Pump Station in there, you know, we may do some water main projects. But we need to, in my mind, really narrow down and focus on projects that we think we've got a really good opportunity in getting, and that will score a lot of points. So we've got Burns and McDonald's assistance on that. Like I said, the first step would be for you guys to approve a resolution authorizing us to apply for that funding.
So I just got one question. Our relationship with Burns and McDonald, whatever, we have them, we just paying them time, materials?
This
for
is
this, or
part of
the North Street?
the contract that we entered into them with North Street and I. Part of that, part of their job description was their duties was to assist us in getting outside funding.
Okay.
So that's just, I think we're paying them between both projects close to $12 million. So this just comes with it. It's not, we're not going to build separate.
Okay.
And I think on North Street Pump Station, it specifically says that. And I think it did in the other agreements as well. So I think it's kind of comes with it.
I certainly don't think we want to miss out on any of that funding that may be available to us. So, and I guess at this point, we won't get any for the waste treatment project.
You know, it's that includes the whole town. There's a $5 million limit. There's just a lot of other hurdles there that really I don't think, after talking with Bernie McDonald, I think we're just it wouldn't be very good use of our time to try to do something there, because I think it's pretty obvious to us and them that it wouldn't happen. So, but you know, I think if we can still get some funding for the wastewater department in I&I, we've got that I&I fund that we can potentially, you know, shift over to help the plant. So I mean, it's like it's the same department, it's just kind of different areas.
did we talk about the lead piping? Do we have some lead piping out in our systems? Because I know that's one thing that identified in here.
We don't.
We had a program in the late 90s that we removed every known lead line.
Okay,
So everything on our side is inventoried.
okay.
Still a little gray on how the state's going to approach the private side. There's trespassing issues and
That's what we talked about, it. There's the private side.
there's a couple webinars coming up in the future that I'm going to try to attend just to get the feel of what the rest of the state's doing to see. It's basically the same thing as private sewer laterals. We all know it needs to be done, but how do you go about it?
Okay.
Yeah, there's still a lot to figure out there, but yeah, it's kind of like you're almost punished for doing a good job. I think, the underground facilities department had all lead lines identified and removed 25 years ago. I mean, we're way ahead of everybody. So that eliminated that funding opportunity. I think there's some opportunities for the city in there potentially, looking through there, some stormwater, some different things.
Well, I'm glad that MMU has been progressive because waiting for state and federal help is not worth the effort.
No.
So I think that the staff at MMU should be commended for all the forward thinking and things they've done, so. What's your pleasure about this resolution?
I'm in favor of it. So with that, I will make that motion to approve resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, Financial Assistance Center, State ARPA Grant Program.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, Financial Assistance Center State ARPA Grant Program. There's no additional questions. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. You need a signature, right?
I will at some point. I need to circle back with Burns McDonald and make sure we've got the correct projects on here after a visit with Grant the other day. So, yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Skipping over that, I know we've been talking about capital improvement project funding. That's kind of been a big thing. Kind of went down and identified the different types of funding that are typically available for utilities on large projects. I think the cash reserve policy that the board just approved is a big step in that direction, particularly when you consider, your five-year capital improvements, and it considers those type of things, which maybe makes getting funding a little less painful because maybe there's less of it. So if you kind of read down through here, we've been fortunate enough to do interdepartmental loans. And these are kind of listed in order of what you're going to see interest rate wise. The state revolving fund, which is through DNR, and then municipal bonds, both of those have to have voter approval to apply for. And then the MPUA lease finance, which doesn't need voter approval, but it is the highest interest rate. These interest rates were gathered probably 3 weeks ago, and they are most certainly higher than that right now. Tony and I have been talking about the funding needs we currently have. That's be the North Street Pump Station project, the wastewater treatment plant project, and the broadband project. And we're pretty confident that we could do those with interdepartmental loans. depending on the timing, it could put us below the minimum amount identified in the cash reserve policy. But with the incoming payments or the revenue from those loans, that would be for a very short period if that happened.
How long do you expect that to be, Jeff?
You know, if we did all the loans and the timing was just worst case scenario, it'd be less than 6 months. We'd be under that. Would that be correct, Tony?
Probably right,
With
yeah.
the income or the payments coming back
Yeah.
from those loans. And, one of our thoughts was that the board is still wants to do a departmental loan fund, which we could establish. We currently don't have one established. We currently don't have, any paperwork internally. The board approves something, but I think we need to, that was one of the recommendations from the peer reviews. We kind of do that a little more formal. But we do have the money to do that. If the money coming back in from that, we could allocate that back to the general fund on the electric side. Because that's currently, most of that payment's going into the general fund at this
I
time.
mean, all right now.
All the outstanding loan payments are going into the
Operating fund.
general, operating fund. Some of those then we could allocate where some of that went back into interdepartmental loan fund, and then a portion go into an economic development fund that the board would have with the capital. The more I see, especially the world we live in today, the things that go on, with electric prices, gas prices. I read an article here a couple days ago about some more water regulations, the forever chemicals. I mean, if you hear, I'm sure Travis knows what I'm talking about there. I think EPA just released yesterday that there is no safe limit from those. So you're going to have to put systems in to completely remove all of them. So there's just a lot of things that could pop up that if you guys don't have control, you might say, hey, wait a minute, we need to stop putting money here. And, it gives you guys the ability to react to whatever situation comes up with the funding within utilities, I think, rather than putting a set thing on there and then not having the ability to adjust that as needed when these other things come up. And hopefully that makes sense. But I put a thing in here in the past. It looks like, that's kind of been, and I'm sure we could probably find other examples of that, but where the city administrator and the mayor had visited with the board about it. It looks like an economic development project, some property in a building, and the board had committed to doing that. So I know we're in discussion with the city on an ordinance they tabled. I think this would be Tony and I's recommendation moving forward on how to, and how, what that amount is, or how you guys want to do that. Obviously there's some decisions to be made there as well. So, but I just think in the world we live in, you allocate it this way one day, and 3 months later you need to change something. You're not stuck having to, go through a bunch of things. It gives you guys, or the board, control over the finances that it needs to have to deal with a lot of things we see in today's environment. So, and I'll get into kind of the gas price a little bit more here. Electricity is going to go up. I mean, it's wholesale, and we don't know when, we don't know how much. Then you got grain belts coming in, so there's all these things that could affect how those loan payments are allocated back. So, I certainly think it makes sense for this body to have control of that based on, some of the needs and things that come up to this.
Is the intent of this to, in the peer review, develop a policy, evaluate the practice of the interdepartmental loans? Is that what we're trying to do with this?
Well, I'm just kind of laying out there, we don't really have a funding policy. I think we need to have an interdepartmental loan policy. in an amount.
I couldn't quite understand what, if this is a policy we're trying to put in place.
No, this was just kind of laying out there, and waiting on feedback from you guys. I didn't know if you guys understood the funding resources we had available. I just kind of wanted to revisit that, make sure everybody understood what resources we have available, kind of what the interest rates look like. I thought it was a good time where we're at with ARPA. ARPA certainly, I'll be honest with you, was very disappointing. When I heard that 2.3 billion was coming out, it was water and wastewater. And then when it finally got, finalized, it was the conversation I had with Burns and McDonald. DNR was even surprised with what came out. I mean, it just got 1 month left. So I think I just timed it to let you guys know. We do need to make a decision on our current project, the wastewater treatment plant. If that's, we I think the board has directed us to fund that until we can come up with some other type of funding, which ARPA's not going to be it. So that's really what you've got to pick from there.
And that's just it. At this point, we know ARPA is not
Right.
going to be available. One comment, and just I'll make it about the economic development. So my feedback is let our committee, see what we can work with the council. I did get a call trying to schedule a meeting. Our last one was canceled because one of our members couldn't be available. So we are going to try to meet next week, early next week. So let that committee, or let us work with that. Now that we have an approved cash reserve policy, we'll meet with the members of the council and let us kind of work that. And I understand your recommendation here, but let us see what we can work out between the council and then this, Jeff, this is 35 years old. I know there's some conversation here with the MMU and what they were willing to do, but again, that was 35 years ago. And let's kind of see what we can do to move forward, and maybe not.
Well, there's more examples of that. I just thought it was. We ran across that. I think that's been.
35 years ago, I was trying to get MMU to get a sewer to my house so I could connect my house to the city sewer. So at that point, I didn't see MMU being very helpful, to tell you the truth.
Right.
But anyway, that's just, that was sometime.
Well, we felt like we needed to kind of we've kind of got through the ARPA thing. We're looking at our funding. And I think when we do this funding, if we fund these projects, we won't have any money
No, I think
to put a seed in there and
I
say.
think all this is fine. I really do, and it helps to understand how we can fund it. But I'm talking more specific to the economic development.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm trying to look. I think when Tony and I talked, we didn't want to wait until we met certain requirements to start a fund. We thought, well, because we're going to be below, we're not going to be above any maximums. And we're going to be actually below a minimum, but how do you work with the city? And I guess just share our thought process is to go ahead and start allocating a portion of these payments coming back in to where we're doing it now. We're not having to wait until we reach a certain point and then we start doing it. And I think we wanted to go ahead and try to do what we can short term. And I think that's the way to do it, to kind of. And if it's a fund here, that gives you guys the ability to react if something happens negatively. And the possibilities of that to happen are there. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, we haven't had our first committee meeting yet.
Are you saying you don't think we need a capital improvement project funding policy? Or
I'm talking more about the economic development. That's kind of more what I'm talking about, this last part here. I think this is all fine, how, money's available and how we can fund different things. And probably nothing wrong with at least starting to think about building some kind of economic development fund. But,
I think that was
our intent, we did, you suggested that Steve and I serve on that committee, and there's two from the city council, so. And we haven't had the first meeting. So we need to have that first meeting and see where, what we can work through from both parties.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, we felt like, was the time we needed to see where ARPA was gonna end up, see where we were at with interdepartmental loans, and to come up with kind of a plan to meet their needs that was workable for us. And I think that's kind of what we're recommending here. And obviously you guys haven't met or had any discussion, but I think we feel like we've provided you enough information that you can sit down and say, hey, here's kind of what
Yeah.
we're looking at.
Yeah.
And we can provide you some numbers there, because I think when you go back to his interdepartmental or the cash reserve policy, when we're done doing loans, and we've saved our community millions of dollars by doing interdepartmental loans. I mean, if you look at these interest rate numbers, it's in the millions.
Having to go somewhere else and.
Right, you're not
Sure.
right. You're paying
Yeah.
yourself. I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of like a credit
Yeah.
union or whatever, but that's not going to go on forever. We were fortunate. We had some reserves. I think once these are done, these loans are done, especially on the electric side, because a lot of the money that's going back into the operating fund is just keeping us even. I mean, that's not going to go back into, if we had $10 million out on loans, when all that gets paid back, we're not going to have $12 million in the bank. It's good. We're going to have $5 million, because we're kind of subsidizing the
Operating
electric.
costs of some of the other,
Correct.
yeah.
Right. So.
Yep. We don't want to get in the practice of doing $10 million loans.
Right.
I think it's
and
a good
that's part of the
practice.
peer review is
Yeah.
a policy on those interdepartmental.
Well, I think the thing was too is when we did the loan with the city, we kind of set that up like a loan. We had paperwork, and whereas in the past, our interdepartment loans have just been like, you guys would approve it, and we would just do it, and there really wasn't any paperwork, So it's really treating it like a loan and having the paperwork set up. We thought maybe it makes sense to have a fund for interdepartment loans. So if there's not money in there, it's all loaned out, then we can't do, we're just
Right.
not going to do them. But if there's,
Then we'll have to do some of this other stuff.
right, yeah, that was kind of our thought process behind it.
But we'll get, probably before you meet, we should probably show you where that will put us if we do these loans.
Okay.
And if we do those internal loans for the projects that we have going right now, that you're gonna have a hard time. The only way to do it was to say, okay, when we exceed this amount, then we can start putting money in there. Well, that was gonna be for a while. That wasn't gonna start. And I think my impression from the city is they would like to have something sooner than later. So that's where our thought about having the ability to allocate a certain amount of money in there, and you guys put a cap on it.
Yep. I think
If
you and
they've
I
got a
talked about
project
that.
going,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it gets something started sooner.
Okay.
And that's something for you and Stephen and if you have questions or need information to take to that, so.
Okay.
And I think to us, that makes sense, but, we'll just have to sit down and see, hopefully that's something that works for them. I mean, I think it's, like, you go back 35 years, and you could probably throw 10 other times in there or more, where, the cities come to the board and the same things happen. I mean, it was mentioned by one guy that it didn't work. Well, I think what he was referring to didn't pan out, so it wasn't anything that we didn't do.
It wasn't a lack of.
It wasn't
help.
it wasn't a lack of our willingness to do
Right.
something. It was a lack of something else not happening.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know that that's really fair to say the board didn't help, because, I mean, it wasn't really up to the board how that worked out. So, I think when it is up to the board has always responded in a positive manner. So, anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to kind of get to that point. Moving on here, yeah, I've just kind of updated the peer review summary. I've started putting that in italic, just so you guys can kind of see where we're at on some of those. Not all those have been updated. But if you guys have any questions on that, and I'll probably be, once we get through this, we'll maybe bring an interdepartmental loan policy and some type of cap, or you guys might start thinking about that. Moving on to Spencer's favorite, the MOPEP stat sheet. in the color codes. I think the key thing is we all know what gas prices are doing. And if you look, the near month natural gas future price, I think Carl said we paid $8.17 per MCF. You can see where it was at in July of 20, it was below $2. 45.9% of the generation nameplate capacity in our country is natural gas. 45%. Last year, in 2020, so I'm going, these statistics are 2 years old. In 2020, natural gas was responsible for 40.8% of the electric generation produced in our country. Now, fortunately for MOPEP, gas is only 15% of our portfolio. What's been happening over the years, coal plants are retiring, you're getting a lot of solar and a lot of wind, and gas is making up the difference. Gas is the intermittent resource being used when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, and there's some base load gas as well because you don't have coal. The national percentage of coal is 19.2%. We're fortunate enough that we have 66% of our portfolio is coal, which helps us. That's a hedge against the market. So we're not going to see the price increases that people that have natural gas make up a larger portion of their portfolio. But I think it's safe to say we're going to see some wholesale price increases. This month in particular, one of our coal units is down for scheduled maintenance. So I think we're expected to see wholesale power costs in the $70 range, $76, $78. So it's going to be interesting. You know, interest rates just went up. It's supply chain issues, workforce issues, and something to talk about. This ARPA money has not even hit the street yet. What's that going to do to supply chain and workforce issues? You know, that's you know, it was designed to, I think, stimulate and bring things back, but it'd be interesting to see how that happens. So I think we just really need to keep a close eye on the future, you know, particularly with these energy prices, because it affects every one of our departments. You know, every department uses electricity, departments use gas. It's going to be interesting.
What's the target date for Greenbelt to go online?
End of 2025 was the last I heard. We have more meetings next week, so I may be able to get a little more information on that. But it's still several years out.
Okay. At least it's still moving forward.
Right. Yeah.
It didn't get nixed. Yeah.
No, it didn't. That's going to be beneficial. And you know, we're kind of subsidizing our customers right now with our reserves, which that's where the reserves came from. You know, we're slowly trickling those back. I don't know how slow, but you know, that helps. That's going to provide some rate stability. But at some point, I just want to let you guys know, and you know, it'll take a little bit longer than just these first few months of this year to figure out where things are going to end up. But all indications are that prices are going up. So, did you get our FEMA tabletop inspection? Waiting on, Nolan and I reviewed their report, and I signed an initial it, and then had to go into their FEMA porthole to sign it, and something had changed. They changed the percentage on something, so I'm waiting to see why they did what they did. I'm not signing anything until they fix it. So, but that's our last project, our biggest project. It's 6 figures, so hopefully we'll get that thing done. Did get the gas transportation agreement to MME, so that should all start here pretty quick.
When does that start, Jeff?
It'd be billing. Well, it should start now. Gas transported for June,
Okay.
so it'll be their next month's bill.
July bill.
Their July bill. So we'll have some more revenue there, which is a good thing. I don't have anything else. Be glad to try to answer any questions.
One thing under the peer review summary, under the discounts to city facilities, this information has been presented to the board, waiting on direction feedback. I know at one point we did talk about, is there, because you did present different communities and what they do, and it's kind of across the board. Some, carry the, charge the city the full rate, some not at all, some at discounted rate. And I think there was a request, what could be our discounted rate? What is, is there?
What's our cost?
Yeah, is there a way that could be looked at and considered, and maybe that's something we could take a look at?
Yeah, we can, and one of the ideas in there, and I don't know what you guys think about it, but one of the approaches I saw that I thought made sense was, the facilities that are fee-based and have a revenue stream pay more, and then some of your city facilities that don't generate any revenue, that's where they try to help out. So, and you guys can do it any way you want. We can figure out what our costs are going to be. Sure.
Okay.
And bring that back to
Yeah.
you. But
I think
it's
that's
certainly up to you, and obviously, that may be something that the council is going to be involved in. And,
right.
We probably don't want to start a whole lot of discussion without their involvement. So, but we can provide what our costs are, and then maybe sit down with them, whether it wants to be a committee or otherwise, and kind of see what their thoughts are.
Okay.
But yeah, to me, if it's a fee-based service, it would make sense to charge them something.
Right.
And then, your facilities that don't generate revenue, then you could, but that's certainly up to you guys.
It just seemed like those communities, they would just, there wasn't really any consistency to it. It was just, man,
Right.
Everybody had a different take on it.
Anything else for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff. I guess we're ready for cash disbursements.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
We're gonna be.
It's a lot different than what it was in 1988.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, you guys. Yeah, that was another thing to pick up on there.
Yeah.
And we're going to start seeing, I think, quite a few bills from Burns and McDonald on the sewer plant project.
Yeah, I guess I did fail to mention that, but we did receive, or the construction guys did receive the first shipment of the bridge support framework last week.
Clarifiers coming in. And
There should be a clarifier, I think, the first clarifier next week, and then kind of each week after that, those will come in, so.
Yeah, other than the power bill, it's not too much, really.
Yeah, it's what, 800,000?
Yeah.
to be. If you notice on that power bill, our asset charges went down, but our energy charge went up, and that was because of how much coal generation we have. That's what helps us.
I'd make a motion that we approve the cash disbursements as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve cash disbursements. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, June 30th. Let's see everybody. Hopefully Steve will be back. We need a short executive session for personnel reasons. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session for personnel.
So moved, Spencer Purchase.
Second.
Ken Bryant, yes?
Spencer Purchase, yes.
Yes.
We are recessed into executive session.
I got a